In less than 10 minutes from now, one woman will be dead, her body partially concealed in a sack. Another will be left fighting for her life, bludgeoned, bleeding, barely able to escape. The only suspect will have vanished, never to be seen again. The twist? The victims were his children's nanny and his own wife. Who are you?
I am Richard John Bingham, 7th Earl of Lucan. Known more infamously as Lord Lucan. But did I actually commit this crime?
Lucky Lucan, as some knew him, was a professional gambler and a peer of the realm. A British aristocrat, well-connected and a familiar face in high society. He drove an Aston Martin, raced powerboats, and vacationed with the rich and famous. But underneath it all, he was drowning in debt. His marriage was collapsing, and the life he had built was unraveling. The press would paint him as an altogether different person. Above the law, angry, vengeful, and resentful. On the night of November 7th, 1974, his life and that of his family would spiral out of control, ending in murder, a violent attack, and an unexplained disappearance. There are only two versions of events from that night, though only one has been widely accepted as truth. The account, given by Lady Lucan, Veronica, but is her account of events accurate? We have only the merest of details of Lord Lucan's version of events, as after the night in question, he was never heard from again. No body was ever found. So, what really happened that night? 46, Lower Belgrave Street, London, the location of which would become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in British history. Lady Lucan is home with her nanny of 8 weeks, Sandra Rivet, and her 3 children. Lord Lucan no longer resides here, having lost custody of his children. His car is often seen parked outside, lurking. Late-night phone calls to the Belgravia residence are common, but nobody speaks, just heavy breathing or silence on the line. It's now 8:55 p.m. Veronica is in her bedroom with her eldest daughter, Frances. The evening news will start shortly. Sandra enters the bedroom and asks Veronica if she'd like a cup of tea. She gratefully accepts. The kitchen is in the basement. As she approaches the bottom of the stairs, she reaches for the light switch. Nothing. The lights aren't working. The bulb isn't broken. It's been removed. Something isn't right. From the darkness, a shape appears. In its hand, a lead pipe. Sandra doesn't even have a chance to scream. The figure moves rapidly towards her, hand raised and poised to strike down. She's hit repeatedly on the head. She tries to protect herself, but the pipe crushes her unmercifully. Defensive wounds will later be found on her arms, but they weren't enough. If Veronica's account of events is true, the attacker realizes this isn't Veronica. Sandra wasn't supposed to be here. This was her day off. Veronica was supposed to be home alone, with only the children. Her body is haphazardly placed into a mail sack, her arm protruding from the bag. Her blood is soaking through. The plan is falling apart. He heads back up the stairs. Then he hears it.
Sandra?
Lady Lucan makes her way down from her first-floor bedroom, wondering what has delayed her nanny. She looks down the basement stairs and sees only darkness. Something doesn't feel right. From behind her, a man comes rushing out, striking her 4 times on the head with a lead pipe. The attacker wraps his hands around her neck, trying to strangle her and throw her down the stairs into the basement. She manages to reach back and take hold of his genitals. In pain, he releases her, and they both collapse onto the floor. She turns around and sees her husband, Lord Lucan. She begs for her life, pleads to him to let her live. She asks,
Where's Sandra?
He hesitates a moment before replying.
She's dead.
Veronica then changes tack, playing to his fears and confusion.
Sandra has few friends. No one will miss her. I can stay in the house until my wounds have healed.
According to Veronica, both victim and attacker now play off each other's emotions, attempting to lure the other into a false sense of safety. Lucan takes her upstairs to her bedroom. Seeing Frances in the room, he sends her off to bed. As he fetches Veronica a glass of water, she seizes her chance and runs from the room and straight onto the street. She crashes through the doorway of the plumber's arms, screaming,
Help me! I've just escaped from being murdered.
The version of events presented by Lady Lucan have become the accepted story. Lord Lucan disappeared into the night. What we have of his version are mere fragments, letters written that very night. Did you kill your wife, Veronica?
Absurd. Was I there that night? Yes. Did I kill my children's nanny and my wife? No.
9 p.m. Lucan sits outside his estranged wife's home at 46 Belgrave Street. This isn't the first time he's watched the house. Reports of his car parked outside the residence have been made. We can only speculate on his reasons. Did he long to see his children? Was he trying to push Veronica over the edge? Was he planning a murder? He would often call and provoke her, recording the conversation secretly as proof of her mental state. Nonetheless, he sees something unbelievable through the front windows. Veronica, but not alone. A man approaches her from behind, holding something in his hand raised above his head. He strikes down hard upon her head. Lucan rushes into the house, interrupting the assailant. The two men struggle. Veronica is bleeding, but conscious. Eventually, Lucan gains the upper hand. Defeated, the attacker flees out the open door. He turns his attention to Veronica, but she doesn't greet him as a savior. Instead, she accuses him of hiring the man, trying to have her murdered. Why would he do this? It didn't make sense. Was the plan to kill the nanny? Had the nanny been killed by accident? Did Lucan have a change of heart? In any event, the rest of the story played out as Veronica described. They headed upstairs to the bedroom, and while he was in the bathroom, she escaped to the plumber's arms. Tell us what happened next. Where did you go?
Well, I called my mother, told her to take the children to her home. Then I went to see Susan.
He turned the bathroom faucet off, having poured a glass of water for Veronica, now lying down in the adjoining bedroom. When he turned around, she was gone. He checked the children's rooms, but no Veronica. The front door was ajar. She had run off. The evidence all pointed to him as the attacker. He returned to his car. He would never see his home again. At around 10:30 p.m., he would call his mother, telling her a catastrophe had occurred at his Belgravia residence. He then drove to Uckfield and spoke with his friend, Susan Maxwell Scott. At 30 minutes past midnight, he spoke with his mother again, letting her know he would be in touch later that day and would then also speak with the police. He wrote to his brother-in-law, briefly explaining what had happened that evening and asking him to take care of his children. He states that he intends to
Lie, doggo.
hide, keep a low profile for a while. But then at the end of the letter, he asks his brother-in-law to explain to his children when they are older,
The dream of paranoia.
referencing his wife. Sometime between 5 and 8 a.m. on November 8th, he proceeded to the harbor town of New Haven, a short distance from Uckfield. There, he sent his last letter to Michael Stoop, the owner of the Ford he had driven. In it, he blames lawyers and psychiatrists for his situation, referencing his lost court case for guardianship of his children. He still claimed his innocence. After that, nothing. Lord Lucan had vanished. The official story ends with Lucan having committed suicide by drowning. The police scoured the water in the days and weeks after the murder, but turned up nothing but the skeleton of a judge who had disappeared years ago. A body lost to the depths isn't particularly unusual. What if that was what he wanted us to believe? What if he got away? During Lucan's gambling days at the Claremont Club, he was befriended by its owner, John Aspinall. Besides owning the club, he also owned a zoo with rare and exotic animals. John has gone on the record saying he doesn't know the whereabouts of Lucan, but believes he is alive and well. He even goes so far as to say that if Lucan had come to him for help, he would have, without a doubt, helped him to escape.
And I mean, of course, if you're going to turn your friend over to the authorities, be it the law, you're no longer a person in my view.
Lucan was part of the old aristocracy. He had many friends who might think the same as Aspinall and have the funding and connections to help him disappear. Indeed, the tabloids pushed just such a possibility, painting him as an alcoholic, a gambler, and above the law. But where would he go? There have been numerous sightings of Lucan over the years in South Africa and Mozambique. But why Africa? Aspinall and Sir James Goldsmith, another high society friend of Lucan's, had strong connections to Africa. Aspinall's secretary from the time has stated on the record that she organized passports and itineraries for Lucan's 3 children for a safari vacation. Apparently, Lucan had requested to see his children, if only from a distance. At that time, the children were already living with his brother-in-law and Veronica's sister. Their mother would not see nor have any relationship with her children again. Confidential Scotland Yard files stated there was evidence that Lucan had in fact escaped to Africa. According to the report, Lucan was living in Mozambique under the assumed name of John Crawford. The address book of David Hardy, a gambling friend of Lucan's, listed an address for him at Hotel L'Ambassadeurs, Mozambique. This address book was a gift from Hardy's wife in 1977, 4 years after the Lucan incident. Why would a friend have an address for someone believed to have died years earlier? Lucan's own brother, Hugh, moved to Africa 6 months after the events in November. Years later, he stated off the record that Lucan had escaped, having become a Buddhist. This would be the key to tracking down a man in Australia who was believed to be Lucan. In 2008, a builder in Hampshire would discover a letter left to him by his deceased mother. The content would spark an obsession lasting to this very day. Neil Berryman was soon to discover that his birth mother had put him up for adoption. His mother was the nanny of the Lucan children, Sandra Rivet. Before learning of his biological mother, he had hardly heard of Lord Lucan. The beginnings of an obsession had taken root, which would end up dominating his life for the next 17 years. From the outset, he hadn't believed that Lucan had died that night, instead believing that he had escaped to some far-off locale. His investigations would eventually lead to him receiving a letter from Brisbane, Australia. In it, a man named Stephen Gillis purported to have met a Buddhist monk named Adam Cadmon, who claimed to have murdered Sandra Rivet and fled Britain. Neil tracked him down, but what he found was a confused 80-year-old man. His name had been changed numerous times. He claimed he was born in the United Kingdom and had attended the same school as Lucan, Eton. His birth date and age even seemed to match. Forensic facial comparison concluded that this man and Lucan were not the same person. Neil, however, undeterred, sent images of Lord Lucan and the elderly man to Professor Hassan Ugail, an AI facial recognition expert. This time, they were a match, confirming that this man, Derek Crowther, was indeed Lord Lucan. But holes in the story would soon appear, his story changing and becoming more confused with each telling. Over time, it became clear that this man was not attempting to cover his tracks, but more likely had dementia, or was a con artist, inventing stories and confusing them with reality, to the point where even he didn't know the truth anymore. He now claimed to be born at Stonehenge in a druid ceremony, and had performed in a cross-dressing cabaret show in Canada before eventually moving to Australia and joining a Buddhist commune. Upon further investigation, parts of the story were confirmed by a colleague in the theatre, but his name had been Peter Jason. It seemed that Neil's hope of finding Lord Lucan was fading, despite his unswerving belief in the contrary. One man's obsession and a fall from grace that would end in murder. This is the picture that was painted of Lord Lucan by the press. But deeper investigation shows that Lucan was actually a quiet and reserved man, a loving father. Veronica even said she would welcome seeing him again. Would a victim welcome her would-be killer? He was more complex than the press would have us believe. At the time, his social circle had not seen him as a playboy, but as possibly homosexual. Had the pressure of society pushed him to take a wife? Had he been living a double life? Veronica's state of mind was presented as something Lucan had tried to exaggerate in order to have the court side with him. But even Veronica's own sister stated that she was a consummate actress, and the mental stresses associated with marriage to Lucan had actually been there since childhood. Lucan was stalking his wife, recording phone conversations, drinking heavily and gambling his entire fortune away, all things painting him as a man capable of going over the edge. But seeing him from a different point of view, we have a man whose life is collapsing around him, trying what he can to keep afloat. Veronica suffered from depression and had a host of different nannies before Sandra, some less than savory. Was Lucan concerned for the safety of his family? If this was concern, it descended to a very dark place. One strangely absent question about that night, Lucan's daughter claimed that there was someone else in the house. For the previous few nights, a man had been sleeping in their home. Could this man have been the attacker? Was Lucan speaking the truth when he said another man was in the house? Investigators never were able to discover if this was true, and if so, who that man might have been. So, the question remains, who killed Sandra Rivet? And if alive, where did Lord Lucan go?